Hello, everyone. Welcome again to Piano Tech Radio Hour. Good to see you. Glad to have you join us once again. Pleasure as always. Um, Very excited about our guest today. We'll take a minute or two just to let people stream in and find their bearings. If you're out there on Facebook or YouTube, just remember we'd love to have you join us right here on the Zoom call. Maybe there's even a moment to ask a question or make a comment in the chat here, and that's awesome. So we will share the link for you to join us here in Zoom, and we encourage you to click on that and hop in. And we'll get started here in a minute or two. And if you are out on Facebook and YouTube and you write a comment, we should also be able to see that. We've got somebody monitoring those chats, and they can share that with me. So if you're out there, you can chime in and you'll be heard, and we'll try to serve your comments and questions if you have them. All right. Well, I want to get into this pretty quick. Sometimes I take a little bit more time to let folks in. But today I'm excited about our guest. And man, I've just read an entire book. So I know we will not be able to read that entire book in an hour, but I have enough information to share for several hours we could cover. So I think it'd be fun to dive in. So I will do the intro to today's session and also intro our guests, and we'll dive right in. So you are now a part of Piano Tech Radio Hour. Welcome. What we do here is we gather every Saturday to meet with and learn from the most fascinating and knowledgeable folks in the piano world. This might include manufacturers, rebuilders, musicians, makers of other instruments, of course, piano techs. Our mutual goal here is to become better at a craft, to help each other, and to create an ever more musical world together. Piano Tech Radio Hour is brought to you by Piano Technicians Masterclasses. These are online learning resources that bring you cutting-edge instruction from piano industry masters without leaving your home. You can find out more about that at pianotechniciansmasterclass.com. And you can also subscribe to just this program that happens every Saturday and goes out as a podcast. And you subscribe to that for just $16 a month. What happens there is you get direct access to each week's private Zoom call. So you'd be on Zoom with us right now, quickly and easily, as well as archival recordings of over 190 episodes in our member area. And that would include this one and everything since we started. And you can join Piano Tech Radio Hour by going to bit.ly/join PTRH. That's bit.ly/join PTRH. And I will put a spotlight now. I'll add a spotlight to our guest today, and I'll do an intro to him, and we'll dive into the conversation, as well as we got some fun surprises from his work. So here we go. Let's intro Jim Wilson. He is a true Renaissance man in the world of music. From his early days in Texas, where a chance encounter with the guitar ignited a lifelong passion for music, to his groundbreaking work with MIDI technology that bridged the gap between acoustic pianos and the digital age. Jim's journey is a study, I would say, in synchronicity. Jim is a tale of perseverance, powerful friendships, and a relentless commitment to one's dreams. After moving to California, wanting to become a star, he found his calling in the world of piano tuning, transforming the sound of pianos for a clientele that reads literally like a who's who of the music industry. And that includes legends like Paul McCartney, Elton John, Carole King, many more. His commitment to integrity, excellence, and his collaborative go for it spirit led him to incredible opportunities. Notably, he was invited to play a key role in the development of a revolutionary MIDI adapter for acoustic pianos. This forever changed the way these instruments interact with technology and forever changed Jim's life. He was rapidly catapulted into the circles of history's key musical and cultural influencers. Beyond his contributions to tech evolution, Jim is a celebrated composer and musician. 4 of his 10 recordings hit the Billboard Top 20. His music has been streamed over 75 million times worldwide, earning him a lifetime membership in the Recording Academy. Jim's work has not only catapulted or has not only captured the hearts of listeners, but also been featured in television series and garnered him 2 PBS specials. All this would never have happened without Jim's willingness to face his own fear and self-doubt head on. Jim also collaborated with Spectrasonics on the Keyscape virtual instrument library as an expert in optimizing keyboard instruments for sampling. Keyscape samples feature Jim's personal customized Yamaha C7, which means the sound of his personal piano can be heard on world-class recordings everywhere and in perpetuity. Jim's upcoming memoir, which is now for pre-sale on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, is called Tuned In: Memoirs of a Piano Man. It promises to be a revealing look at his life from his humble beginnings to his rise as a multi-award winning recording artist. It's a story of personal tragedy, self-discovery, and unyielding belief in the power of music. With endorsements from a constellation of A-list celebrities, the book is a reflection of Jim's impact on music and the people who make it. Jim, I'm sure it's fun to hear all that in one breath. Welcome to Piano Tech Radio Hour. It's good to have you here.
Thank you for having me. That's an amazing introduction and thorough. Do we have enough time left over for the podcast, or is
Not much.
That's a wrap?
It's been nice.
Thank you, everybody.
You.
It was really great to see you, and I appreciate you tuning in. Thank you for that
for sure.
glowing introduction. It's beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah, a lot. There's a lot. I got you to send me a copy of the book. Got it right here.
Yeah,
and
nice.
And I was really happy that we made that happen, that we arranged this interview with time for me to dive into it. And I furiously wanted to finish it before we talked. So I just finished like the last couple of pages last night, and it was great. Yeah, like I said, a lot of great stories, and I think we'll find out more about it. I think there's certain books that every piano technician is probably going to read. You know, you got the Piano Shop on the left bank. You know,
you got Reblets.
You got
the
Reblets.
Technical stuff. You know,
yeah, you got Mario Egrak.
But there's Romance on Three Legs.
Yep.
Right.
And this is going to be one of them. I'm pretty positive.
Oh man.
You know, it's inspiring. And I think too, which is really exciting for you, even though it's about a piano tuner's journey, it really has that connection just to the general human struggle that I think people from all walks of life can enjoy.
Yeah. Well, you're right. You know, the genesis of this is around the beginning of the pandemic. I thought, well, I got no excuse now. I've got plenty of time to start cobbling together these stories. And because I've been told so many times over the years, oh my God, you need to put some of these stories down on paper. So I did, and it soon became apparent it's a lot more than just a collection of fun stories. It's about my journey as an artist, you know, and how this wonderful craft of ours, this amazing craft of ours, has led to all these extraordinary opportunities. And, you know, just sort of jump into that, how that came to be. I was playing in bands back in Texas, and the keyboard players could tune pianos. And I went with Charlie Clinton, the keyboard player for the band Easy, when he went off to tune a piano. And I thought, man, if he could do that, I can do it too. And what a great way to earn $25. I mean, living in high cotton, man, $25 for a tuning. Come on, that's big money. And so I decided to approach it methodically, and I wrote to all the piano tuning schools in America. I found this list of 20 different schools. 17 of the letters that I hand wrote came back to me, moved, no forwarding address, no longer in existence. So it came down to really just 3 of them. The Bennett, I think, and Perkins School of Piano Tuning and Technology in Cleveland was the direction I decided to go. So my God, what a great craft we have. Just a second, because this audience is the perfect audience for this. And I think about this honestly all the time. How amazing is our craft, that just mere virtue of the fact that people that we are in their universe, it's because they value music so highly, they're willing to spend a lot more than a normal instrument and take up a big chunk of their living room, whatever. So you start with that, and it speaks to their values, and that's the people whose universe we're in. And as you sort of go up the food chain a bit more and more discriminating clients and artists ultimately. You are in a higher jet stream, and people who spend 100,000, 100, $200,000 on a piano, and you're the trusted caretaker of their instrument. What an amazing thing, and how it changed my life and put me into all these incredible opportunities, all because I saw these guys tuning a piano. I thought, if they learned it, I can learn it too. So
Hmm.
here's to our craft.
I agree. It's but you said we've been talking a little bit over the past couple of weeks, and I think you've
Yeah,
said this a few times. The first time you said it, I asked for clarification, and I'm glad, to get through the details. You just, it says something about someone's values if they have a
yeah,
piano, and I love to sort of simmer on that a little bit.
yeah,
It's it's like you said, you have to go the extra mile to appreciate it. It's like somebody having a fine painting in their house, right? They
right.
they put the effort, the time, the access income to say, hey, you know what, this is important to me. I want to feature it. I want to be part of my life. And I think interestingly, like the way your book unfolds too, the higher you go into the artists that have had great success, a lot of these folks are not, I mean, they've made money, so they need to do something with it. But I think it's a principle they've had since before they did, was to invest in the things that go beyond money, right? And so you can, somebody that's invested this much in their art, in their creativity, in that non-tangible part of life,
Right.
and you show somebody like you, a great genuine guy that's just great to be around. I'm sure from the book you notice, they also notice that, and they don't just want to have you tune their piano, because the whole thing goes well beyond transactions and money and all that stuff. It goes into just humanity, right? And I think that's that added piece of, what do people value? It's an object. Piano's an object, but owning one means you treasure something special about the human experience, I would say.
Yes. Often you do develop relationships with these people, piano owners and artists. You have to kind of follow their lead. There's nothing worse than somebody coming in and sort of immediately becoming overly friendly, and it's like, oh God, how do I get rid of this person? But if many times I'm kind of ushered in by a recommendation by a higher level artist, and there's already this wonderful understanding. Queen Latifah recently called her friend Quincy Jones and said, "Who's a good technician? You got to get Jim Wilson." So that was a different kind of intro than me just seeing her on the street and going, "I'm a big fan of your." There's this wonderful intro where there's respect, and I love connecting with people, and if the opportunity's there, I'll go for it. If not, I try to just follow their lead. And but what a great profession that we have, that we can deal with musically inclined people and artists.
Hmm. And I'm sure today I've noticed, like going through the book, there's a lot of themes that we run across over and over again, having done over 190 episodes here, about kind
Yeah.
of what emerges as wisdom. And I think also a piece of what you're talking about too is, what we do is not a commodity, or or you can think of it beyond a commodity. It's not like, oh, okay, this piano tuner, I need a piano tuning. Should I get this one or that one or that one? They're all the
Right.
same. Which one's the cheapest or whatever, right? It matters who's doing it and their approach to the whole thing. And I'm sure that's part of your experience as well. There are some people that will appreciate a Jen Wilson as their technician of choice. And there's somebody that will appreciate, Franz Moore as their technician of
Right.
choice, or, somebody else. And I feel like understanding that we've encountered this sort of wisdom of our profession, understanding that you as a technician, once you have that base level of understanding and you care about your craft, you need to sort of reach it and say, what's special about me, because that's a part of what you're doing.
Yeah.
We thought we would share a little book excerpt up
Mhm.
front so people can know exactly what we're talking about. And I wanted to do something special for this because, like you said, you're the perfect guest, and it's exciting to see you put something
Thank you.
together. You're a perfect guest for this show. So I actually did a reading from the prologue of your book, and it's about like 12 minutes long. So we're not going to play the whole thing right now. We'll play about the first 2 minutes, and then we'll come back and have the conversation. But just to give people a taste of kind of the content of the book in its raw form. And then when we're done with the conversation, we'll use that as a bit of an epilogue to this program. We'll play out with the remaining, 10 minutes or so of that. So if people are interested, they can dive deeper in. So why don't we go to that right now, and then we'll come back to some conversation. Sound good?
Right.
All right, perfect. So we'll get that media player going, share the audio. And as always, folks, if you can't hear something or see something right, you let me know on that end because I can't always tell how it comes through on your side. All right, here we go.
You must be Jim. He calls me by name. And just like that, I'm once again the 8-year-old boy who obsessed over this icon's hit songs. The pudgy kid who yearned to enrapture fans with music. The dreamer whose life direction was shaped by the trail this legend blazed. It feels like I have cotton in my mouth. Amazingly, my lips move. Words come out. And I'm guessing you must be, I want to say, Paul? He laughs and extends his hand. My anxiety begins to ease. Just. I've met and worked for quite a number of celebrities by now, but this is Paul McCartney, a friggin' Beatle. His music has underscored my whole life, made me cry, laugh, sing at the top of my lungs, worked its way deep into my musical DNA. This is like meeting Mozart, Gandhi, and Obi-Wan Kenobi rolled into one. I mean, here's a guy who's literally changed the world with his music. But I don't have the luxury of succumbing to nervousness. I'm here on a limited mission to install an adapter in Paul McCartney's piano and show him how to work it. Thankfully, I can speak with assuredness about the adapter installation. I even suggest ways I could improve the touch and tone of his Hamburg Steinway B grand piano. Have I overstepped my bounds? But he smiles. Have at it, he says. We agree to meet the following morning, and I ask what time. Finish anyone? He gives a grin and his iconic raised eyebrow. That a figure from the musical version of Mount Rushmore enjoys a corny dad joke puts me further at ease.
All right. So
as I kind of say in what you just read, there's meeting celebrities, and there's meeting like major celebrities, there's meeting royalties, and there's meeting a Beatle. I mean, it's for any of us who grew up with their music, it's so deeply ingrained into our DNA, and they're such mythological characters. And then to actually see him face to face, and he's very present, he's very alive and jocular, and it's like, wow. It's, it took me a minute to, I was relieved to see my mouth moving and actual human words coming out. But the next day, as we'll find out, I was a little bit more present, and it's like, okay, this is going down. And it turned into this magical 4-hour hang of singing Beatles songs and telling stories, and, just an incredible hang, and him ending that with, anytime you're in the UK, just give us a bell. And I would, like a dozen times, go to his Homer studio, and it's in the limo ride back to London where I'm thinking, how the hell does an insecure West Texas kid end up here? So
yeah. And there's a hint of that, which I think is a theme in the book, which is great. Which again is a theme that we've gone through, especially David Anderson, who kind of helped launch this thing, was integral into some of these themes of wisdom that we covered.
You're here.
You're here,
Raise a glass to David.
for sure.
Yeah.
Like a fearlessness, not a fearlessness that you're not afraid in the first place, but to just kind of be willing to push through the voices in your head that say you're not good enough,
do
or
it
whatever.
anyway.
Feel like you're gonna do it anyway. Yeah. And I love that. Um, Well, wonderful. So you guys have a taste of that. And we will I will I guess I'll jump right into it because I thought this was great when I got in there. Like I don't know what this book about a piano tuner's life is going to be like. You know, it could be relatively boring, I'll be honest with you. Right? Oh,
Right.
I tuned this cool person's piano. I've turned this cool
Yes.
piano. Okay, great. Okay, great. Okay, great. So we get to the point where you move to LA, and again, you're just this kid coming off the boat, you know, just you drove though from Texas. And you show up, and within a few weeks, you're like hanging out with celebrities. You're dating like a Playboy cover girl who's been a Playmate of the Year. Like, and so pretty quickly you go, okay, this is not just going to be about like pianos. It's really
Right.
there's really some fun stuff in there. You know, you talk about some trouble that you made as a kid.
Yeah.
Um, and there's a real story there. There's a real adventure in it. So can you talk a little bit about um, that transitional period of getting to LA and like how that all emerged?
Yeah. So I did this 2-day drive, January of 1979, from Amarillo, Texas to Los Angeles. And I arrived at 6 p.m. on a Monday night. And my new roommate to be, Mark Hinton, he says, "Hey, listen, there's this band playing. Let's go hear them. It's Monday, 6 o'clock." 3 hours later, 9 p.m., that Monday night, we're hearing these guys. They're all studio musicians, and every single one of them is at the top of their game. They just do this band for fun. It's called Just for Grins. So every single one of them would have a piano. Every single one would be friends and big champions of my work. And so every single one of those was like planting a little acorn seed, which evolved into this, grew into this incredible tree. One of whom was Scott Page, who is, I know that you know, he's a force of nature. And but so each one of those guys, that this one would lead to Scott Page would lead for me tuning for Seals and Crofts, if you can remember them, and Supertramp, and then that one would lead to another person, which would lead to tuning for Chick Corea for 14 years. He was my client for that long, all 9 of his pianos, and um, and so on. So that was it was a fun way to enter into the LA um, you know scene, but what a scene it is. It's a big town, it's a megapolis, and it'll swallow you up whole. And I got very fortunate and was able to get a little toehold and establish a business, even if it did ultimately kind of lead me off track of my original dream, which, as I say in the book, the original dream was to become the next Jackson Brown, and instead I became the next Jackson Brown piano tuner. So that was an evolution that took place over another decade or more.
Yeah. You also have, just to give people a sense of the things that are going on in the book. I mean, one, we get to start, I've finished it, so I'm realizing I'm a little bit more on the middle and end, but like we get to start with you just as a kid and kind of, some difficulties that you encountered. So, living in a house where you didn't have a bedroom and, you sort of pull a coup d'etat at some point and like unload some closet so you can have some privacy, like it
Right.
was one of those places where things weren't perfect, and you had to kind of find that connection to your inner self and believe that you could move on to better stuff. And you also have a propensity for setting things on fire. Um, as a kid, maybe it's worth sharing this story. I mean, there's two stories of setting things on fire. I don't know if you made that connection, but I did. With your father,
Yes, the
as
stable.
well as the Gershwin's
Oh,
piano.
yes. Oh, okay. Funny. Okay.
So tell
Yeah,
us
I didn't
about that.
quite
And why are you such a pyromaniac?
pyromaniac. What's going on there? What's going on with that? Well, the Gershwin piano, we should start there, or the
Let's go
dad
with
thing
that.
was when I was a kid, and I guess 10 years old or 12 or something like that. And my dad was living out in the country, and he had just finished this addition to his stables, and there's 12 new horse stables, and there's a pile of sawdust in one of them, and my friend who'd come up from out of in the city to hang out with me over the weekend, were smoking cigarettes and putting them out on the ground near the sawdust. Nice, good call. And that ultimately led to burning down my dad's stable, which it still just, it hurts to even think of it because my dad was really struggling trying to make it. And here's this knucklehead kid just doing this idiot thing, and it resulted in a big setback for him. But and then you alluded to the other little issue was, so my business was kind of taking off in LA. We're jumping ahead a couple of decades,
Many years, yeah.
many years, and somehow or another I got a new client, Engelbert Humperdinck, and he's saying, "Oh, this is the 9-foot Steinway that Gershwin wrote Rhapsody in Blue on." Wow, he won it in an auction or something like that. And how do you like it? I said, well, it's, the action's a little tough. The hammers need replacing. And so I took the action back to he said, yes, let's do it. And so I took the action back to my little apartment in North Hollywood and put it on I didn't have a shop at that time. I just put it on the little glass table, kitchen table. And so my new assistant, I'm working on traveling the hammer shanks, as you sometimes do, either with a heat gun, definitely preferred, or just for a quick thing, you do the matches. Well, this was done at the same time that my assistant was using naphtha on the sluggish flanges, and one need not to imagine too much what happened then. It's like this big flame. It was a very quick little thing, and it got put out quite easily. But man, has it my friend David, who would become a successful TV writer, he dined out on that story. Hey, did I ever tell you the story about setting Engelbert Humperdinck's piano on fire?
Yeah, ultimately it wasn't as bad as the tale of your childhood. And your friend kind of overdid it, made it sound like the ceiling got full of soot and things. But I think sharing that story and many others from your childhood were very instrumental, because I realized I came at it with sort of a jocular tone, but that was such a probably very difficult moment, and you can really sense it. I've had similar experiences myself, family members, which you've had experiences with family members too, where there's just a sense of being a little bit lost, of where's this all going, just kind of maybe having a little too much fun, or not knowing what the right boundaries were and things like that. So I think that was one of those circumstances where you learned a big lesson in kind of like having more responsibility. Your dad had you kind of work off the damage over time. And as you said, it sounds like somebody building a stable. It's kind of some sort of, it almost can sound like some rich kid type of thing. Oh, dad was building a stable on the farm. And when you read the story, it's more like, wow, he's really struggling, and that was taking him in a deeper hole. What can you say about that transition for yourself? Kind of taking responsibility, because when you can tell when you start working on pianos, I can feel it in the way you're describing what you're doing. You're really taking it seriously, and music too. Like you're practicing like very intensely for hours at a time to perfect things on the guitar. And so I think there's like this certain sense of hard work that's in there too, that you gained. Can you talk about like what that transition was like? Was it gradual? Was it overnight? What was that like?
Well, a lot of who I am, Ethan, is kind of based on in opposition to my dad. I love my dad. He was a great, great guy, but he was a bit of a dreamer, and he had 26 different occupations. He could never stick with anything. And so I got a little bit allergic to him saying, well, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, we're going to do, and he never quite got around to it. So as much as I loved him, I also took the lesson of, dude, if you're going to do this, just fucking get on with it, and don't make any excuses, just do it. So there was that part of me that came to know that If you're going to make something happen, go all in. So that's kind of been the theme of my life. And, um, piano tuning was just going to be a little means to support myself in LA while, pursuing my music dreams. But as long as I was in piano tuning school in Cleveland, Ohio, yes, I'm only there for learning tuning, but hey, they've got this additional thing for grand restoration. It's like, okay, I'll never use this, but why not? So, and that was that really obviously turned into the skills that would take me to the next level. There's tuning, and that's really wonderful. There are a lot of studio tuners out here who just tune and don't do any regulation or voicing, but um, I was so grateful that I did get a little taste for the upper levels of piano care. And as we know, as you advance and get better and better at what you do, there's a little bit of paint by numbers. You can actually, if you can tune a good unison and you have a good ETD, you can do certainly a very passable tuning. But the more understanding that you have about what it is that you're trying to accomplish, and I think becoming a better pianist will help you to become a better piano technician, because you start to appreciate distinctions. So the more I evolved as an artist, the better technician I would become, and vice versa. But that's always served me well, that kind of the determinism to become better and better at whatever it is I'm doing.
And I pulled out a quote from the book, which I think is a good transition. I love this, and this is another place where I see a theme, at least for myself, that I've pulled out of these sessions, with piano experts and masters, right in line with this. When you're 95% done, you're actually talking about mixing audio at the time, but you're also saying that you think about piano work this way. And I love this. When you're 95% done, you're halfway there. Yeah. The difference between good and great is that extra attention to detail given near the end. And I wholeheartedly concur with that, not only from my own experience, but what I see in the people that really excel. But I also think it's something that's a little bit hard to take on, because there's so much pressure to be like, okay, it's about 95%. Let's move on to the next thing. Yeah. So I don't know. Can you talk a little bit about what you see in those things? What are those things that you do? Are there times where you have a second thought? Should I do this? Shouldn't I? But yeah, no, let me do it. Like, what kind of things do you pay attention to in tuning and elsewhere?
My friend Scott Wrights, this wonderful piano technician here in LA, he's kind of like you. He reminds me of you, young and very deliberate about his choice of being a piano tuner, and he's really good. And he, as we know, we talk about circles of refinement. So there's the first pass through where, with a regulation, let's say, let off, drop, hammerline, spring tension, etc., where you get it all really, really close. And let's face it, 95% of the people will go, oh, it's fantastic. But when you're dealing with artists and you want to kind of strive to be the best you can be and to get this thing really dialed in, you start appreciating little nuances of, man, when I get the whip and screw really snug, it gives a nice foundation, and you feel that. And when you take out the slop in the upstop rail, and you kind of get things really dialed in, and the let off is nice and consistent all the way through, and not excessive aftertouch, and all those things. And the more refined it is, and the same thing with tone, it's getting a general tone set up, and the more you get that really defined in, and when it's really right and the next level, and you've taken it from that 95% to 99, is there ever really 100? As we say in the music world, no mix is ever done, only abandoned. So I suppose to some degree it's kind of like that with pianos, but but yeah, there's that. I love that I had this realization that when you're 95% done, you're halfway there. And it is that additional little level of refinement that takes it where it's wow, it's amazing. It's just this glorious experience when you're a pianist to sit down and the touch is really smooth and inviting and the tone is rich and warm and it still has this nice vibrancy on the high end and it's a magical thing. And that's another aspect of our craft is that we're dealing with this intangible element of sound, this auditory world. It's
Yeah.
amazing.
And I have a thought on it, and I'm not quite clear on how I want to approach it. Like I'm always refining how I approach this topic too. So I'm curious. I want to get some feedback from you because one of the ways that I think about it is if I'm asking myself, does this really matter? Does this really make a difference? Like I'm literally like maybe I'm listening to something. It's like a difference
Yeah,
between this and this and that,
yeah, yeah.
that I go, let's just pretend there is and
Right.
let's get it how you want it, right? Do you find that too? Like where you reach this like level where you're so close that you can't tell if you're making any difference, but ultimately when you step away from it, all those little things you've done, you go, that must have done something.
They absolutely do, and I love all those little things that are really subtle, but in the Gestalt view and the bigger view, they do add up, and it's a magical thing for somebody who can appreciate it, and especially when you're dealing with kind of higher end artists. I know that every technician who's listening knows there's no better feeling in the world when somebody entrusts you. It's like, so you say it needs regulation voicing. I'm not sure exactly what all that involves, but yes, go for it. Or you've restored a piano, it's the family piano. And I'll bet you anything there's techs out there listening who've had that experience of they sit down to play it and they weep because and the words I love the most are I can't believe it's the same piano. So that's when all those little nuancy things add up, leveling the strings and getting a really nice um, solid contact. You know, I've had the good fortune of working for so many great artists, and as I said, from day one, I was kind of thrust into that jet stream. And one of the clients that I was fortunate enough to work for was Chick Corea. And I had the good sense to know when I was in over my head. I could handle the basics, but when it came down to geometry, I was a newbie. And I had the good sense to reach out to the veterans, Richard Davenport and Norm Neblett, and bring them in on a job and make it worth their while financially. And I learned so much from them and that whole, circle of refinement, getting a little bit better and better. And they've been great inspirations to me.
So, by the way, I I encourage people also read the book because it's kind of fun. You have the celebrities in there that everybody knows about, and then also our little local celebrities in the piano industry.
Yeah,
I know Eric Johnson's on the call today. I'm glad you joined, Eric. Eric's been on Radio Hour a few times
I bet he
and an
has.
excellent technician and great stories to tell as well.
He's
But it was
mentioned in
fun
the
to see.
book.
Yeah, I saw his name there when you were talking about connecting Elton John with Yamaha for pianos, and that was a fun
Yeah,
moment as well.
yeah, that was a fun little thing. So I'd gotten to do a lot of work
Eric,
for
hey, let me bring Eric on real quick. He's saying hi. Look it,
Look at that
he's in the
handsome
thick of
man.
it. He's in the thick of it.
I'm working.
He's got his
I'm
smock
working
on.
here. He's
He's
got
got
his
I'm
his
not
apron
sitting
on.
around talking. I'm working. Hey, Jim.
How you doing,
I, I,
buddy?
I'm good, man. I've really enjoyed it, and I'm looking forward to reading your book. I'm really enjoying this session today. Great job getting him on, Ethan.
Yeah,
Awesome. Yeah,
thank you,
good to
Eric.
see you, Eric. We'll let you get back to work. Get
Yeah,
back
there's
to
this
work.
get back to work. We want to get that regulation just right. But there's, I in the 80s I helped to develop the first MIDI adapter. We can circle back to this, but
Yeah.
I was right place, the right time, and which led to because really at the whole genesis of MIDI at all, I
Hmm.
was right out of the gate with this MIDI adapter for acoustic piano. So before you could even explain to people what this MIDI adapter for acoustic piano was, you had to explain this new thing called MIDI. So that led to me being flown to England a dozen times by McCartney and Elton and Phil Collins, etc. But I had gotten to do a lot of work for Elton, gained his respect, and he played a certain piano, which shall remain nameless. And through no fault of that company's, somebody had messed up the geometry on a Steinway. As everybody listening knows, if you get those action rails off literally by a millimeter, you, instead of a 113 spread, you have a, you know, maybe a 111 spread, or the other way around. It can play like a truck, you know. So unfortunately, somebody had messed that up, and the geometry is now off. And Elton, I was working on his piano. He goes, "Wilson, these keys feel like they're bloody concrete." I said, "Well, you know, I'd be happy to work on that. We'd probably need the piano, you know, in my shop, and I'd be happy to dial that in for you." And he said, "Well, next time you are interested and you're not, you know, you have a little bit of a window, we can take the piano at my shop, and I can put you in touch with the people at Yamaha, who I'm sure would be happy to have you try their pianos." He had kind of an older view of Yamaha. It hadn't been entirely possible at that point. But I said, "No, this is not your grandfather's Oldsmobile," to use a very ancient reference. They've made incredible strides. They listen to artists, they listen to technicians, and he said, "Yeah, okay, maybe I'll give that a go." A week later or so, "Hey, Jim, it's Keith Bradley calling from the road. Elton wants to take you up on your offer, and he would like to try this Yamaha." I said, "Oh, that's great. When are you thinking?" He said, "Well, tomorrow night in New Orleans." Okay. So I looked at the clock, and I saw it was 1 o'clock in LA. I thought, "Oh, that means it's 4 p.m. And so I called Eric in New York. He was the head of CNA for Yamaha at the time. I said, "So how would you like to have Elton John as a Yamaha artist?" "Fantastic. What do we got to do?" "Well, we got to get a piano to New Orleans tomorrow." So boom, he jumped into action and found a CNA 9 foot there. And I did an all-nighter. I flew from LA, New Orleans. I arrived at 9 in the morning, took the red eye, went straight to the stadium, went straight to the piano, started working on it. I took the action apart, just made the friction minimal and even, and regulated, and did a little bit of voicing, and installed the MIDI adapter. So by the time Elton walked in at 2 p.m., he sat down and he started playing. He goes, "Oh, this is lovely." I said, "Yeah. Well, whenever I get your other piano, I can kind of get the same sort of down weight, this 49 down and 28 up, and we can get your action there feeling great too." He goes, "No, I think I'll just give it to charity." And from that moment forward, that little nanosecond of him playing that glorious thing of a perfect touch weight, this, wonderful 49 down and 28 up, and he just he became a Yamaha artist from that moment on.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's like I said, there's these several moments that you mentioned in the book, several times, to be honest. It's very impressive, where it might be practicing a riff, practicing a song, preparing for a concert, doing a gig that you said you could do, but you were just sort of on the edge of being able to do it, but you just pull it all together, where you just kind of, you zone in and you go the extra mile, and you push
Yeah.
past the little bit of resistance and self-doubt.
Yeah.
I really like those moments in there.
Lovely.
It's very inspiring.
Because I know that the self-flagellation that I'll do afterwards is going to be far more painful than whatever it is that I need to confront. So, can you do this? Can you hang hammers? Can you do that? Yes, I can do it. And then work backwards from there to delivering whatever I got to do to deliver a great result. That's it, with whatever it is. But it's good to challenge yourself, and can potentially get you in trouble, but yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Again, the theme of the program here. I was talking to you about David Anderson's sister, Erica
Yes.
Anderson, and this book that
Yes.
she's written, Be Bad First. And it's just
Right.
willingness, there's at least to push it a little bit, and realize that if you're not willing to do that, you're not willing to
Yeah.
risk making a mistake, you're not really going to get better at anything. And I think that's one of the things I really hope that this program can be for people listening to the podcast and just checking things out, subscribing. I feel like I've been in a situation, and maybe you've been there less, I don't know, where it's easy to keep doing what you're doing
Yeah.
and know there's another level. Just like, I don't have time. I've got all these tuning gigs, I'm making enough money. Why do I
Yeah.
need to learn how to replace a string or regulate or voice or whatever? And just to have that little or a lot of inspiration that keeps driving it into your head. You know what? Maybe you do want to reach for the next level. Why not?
Why not is actually as good a reason as any. And there's absolutely nothing wrong if you have a nice clientele, you're just tuning, and there's nothing wrong with just that being enough. And it's that in and of itself, it's such a great thing, this great skill that we have and contribute to people's musical lives. But it is a gratifying thing to kind of nudge yourself to, thank God for the PTG and Piano Technicians Guild and these great seminars and the masters, the Eric Johnsons, the Nick Gravagnes, the Davenport, the Bruce Stevens, these guys who are willing to share their higher learning. And it's a deep subject, and it really is. There's no end to it. It's just as
Mhm.
far into the rabbit hole as you want to go, especially with like touch weight, and action geometry and balance weight. And mad props to all the people who keep going and going. And I reached a certain level of voicing, kind of became my specialty, and I feel like that's what I can bring to the table, because there's no other aspect of piano technology that has more latitude, and it's where the artistry really comes in, because there's you can learn to tune, you can regulate, and but when it comes to voicing, man, there's just this wide range of the tonal spectrum that you can create. And one man's ceiling is another man's floor, and you'll have Eddie Van Halen, with these lacquered hammers that are just harsh and metallic. And hey, Jim, can you make this any brighter for me? Ed, this thing is already like ice picks in my ears. Or Roger Williams, if you remember him, he was a middle of the road pianist, and wow, this thing is just so bright, and it's just so muted and dark, and one man's ceiling is another man's floor. So you
Mm.
you have your own concept of what a good piano tone should be, and then you need to be able to get in their world and go, how does this sound to you? How would you describe this on this continuum? You know, if this is clear, and this is warm and rich, but also clear and focused, and this is bright, and this is harsh and metallic, and this is clangy, or this is dull and dead, you know, how do you feel this? And a lot of times you'll hear people say, man, this piano is really dull sounding, and it's really harsh. But what they're really hearing is that there's no sustain, there's no projection. And so then when you deep needle in the shoulders and kind of open that up so that the hammer can come up, hit the string, compress, and rebound quickly, then you get this nice blossom to the tone, and they go, oh wow. So sometimes you listen to what they say, but you also kind of lead them a little bit. And almost invariably, if you give them this nice, rich, warm, balanced tone, but it still has clarity and focus and vibrancy on the high end, because the overtone series is now allowed to vibrate freely, as opposed to like a stiff hammer, which will kind of choke off the sound. Anyway, what a gratifying thing to be able to deliver for people.
Beautiful. I would be remiss if I didn't transition us into what you call sort of like section 3 of the book here, which is on this theme of kind of continuous improvement, challenging yourself. But it's great because it goes beyond our profession, as piano technicians. It's a theme that we can apply in all sorts of different places. And then you have this moment in your life where you go, hey, listen, I think I have, as an artist, something to say, and whether I do or not, whatever, I really owe it to myself, some friends that you've had in your life that were inspirations, to just go for it, to just go say what you need to say out there. So maybe you could talk about, because it is a big risk. It's a similar risk. You're doing something and it's working. You're piano tuning and it's working and people like it. And you're friends with these musicians that are recording and they're cool and that's great and they like you. But what about making that decision? You know what? I have to pursue this. I have to make my own music. I have to put it out there. Tell us about that.
Well, part 3 of the book, and a little bit of a spoiler alert, but it's what changed my life is my best friend dying of a heart attack at the age of 37. And that shattered me, and it put a flame under my butt with my dreams in a way that nothing else could. I mean, there's always these constant reminders. It's like, no, life is short, man. You got to get on with your dreams. Well, when I was in the hospital room with Claude, as he had a heart attack or a stroke, and he's unconscious, and I'm holding his cold hand, and I'm remembering just a couple of weeks before, my buddy Claude, who had become this great songwriter and arranger, and songs cut by Celine Dion, and he was David Foster's right-hand man and for synth arranging and etc. So I'm in his hospital room and I'm holding his cold hand, and I'm remembering and I'm remembering this incredible sonata that he had written, that he played for me just a couple of months before. And I was so moved by it. And here was Claude he was going to strike out, and he was going to do his first solo album. And I was so proud of him. And I thought, this is going to be amazing. But here I am now 2 months later, and all those dreams are just kind of floating off into the universe, and I'm thinking there are no guarantees there's no limitless reservoir of tomorrows, so get the hell on with it. And I saw how quickly and easily all those things could dissipate. So for me, it took that slap in the face for me to really get on with it. So I've had the wonderful benefit of having now 2 careers that enrich me, and I get a deep level of gratification to be able to create music. So it was when Claude died that I said, okay, I thought, if I get that tap on the shoulder and it's time to go, pencils down, assignments in, as is, let's go. I wanted to go, okay, I'm going to leave something behind that reflects who I am as an artist. And the whole singer-songwriter dream had kind of petered out by then, and it didn't ring true for me. Well, what did ring true was these pieces that I would compose for myself as I'm in between trying to write the next big hit song. Man, it feels so great when I do this little pattern in B minor, and then I go to the sharp 5 and create melodies that kind of pull from my James Taylor influences and little Dave Grusin and Keith Jarrett and this whole mishmash of, Appalachian stuff. And those felt more real to me. And I thought, I'm going to make a record of these things. And if 6 people buy this, that's great. I will feel like I've at least put that into the real world. And long story short, it led to my first album, Northern Seascape, led to a bidding war from 7 labels. Got this massive advanced from Angel EMI division of Capitol Records, and here I am, 10 records later, and it's all piano featured instrumentals, stuff that I composed, and it's very gratifying for that to be of service to people, just in the same way as that feeling when you have restored a piano and you know that the touch and tone are just fantastic there, and somebody sits down, they go, "Oh my God, I can't believe it's the same piano." They're both equally gratifying.
That's great. And I think very inspiring. And for myself, I think the future, of humanity is in creativity. With AI coming and technology coming and doing all
Yeah.
these things, it's really one
Right.
of our essential skills to share our authenticity, our true voice, what we have to create. That's what we can do. And to think any one of us as a human that has that in them is not going to, right? That they're going to focus on something else and not share that kind of creativity. It's sad if that happens. So I'm glad that you're there inspiring people and showing that it can, you need to do these things. You need to express yourself out there. And actually, I'll just tell a quick story.
Please.
It's a short story, but I really appreciated it. So I actually recently went to Tanya Regeer's memorial service,
David.
and you and I were both we were both at David's actually, and both great memorial services, so celebratory. They both live such great lives of sharing themselves completely, and there was a bit of a dance party, of course. That's the type of memorial it was.
Yay.
And this guy that I connected with there that was also a friend of theirs, I'm like, I'm about to leave. I'm about to leave. And he says, "You gotta stay for one more song. You gotta stay for one more song." And he puts this song on, which I've heard before, and I don't know, you maybe know the artist. It's just called Express Yourself. It's just like express yourself, and it's this kind of like funky thing, and
Sure, yeah.
it's a great dance tune, and he starts singing along, and everybody's dancing and just expressing themselves, and it's important. It's a very important thing for people to be able to connect with that and go for it. And the stories you tell about how you're taking that risk and it's actually turning into something special. And not are you just doing it, but I called this incredible studio jazz musician, wondering if they're going to say, "Yes, I'll record that with you." And before you can even spit it out of your mouth, I'm recording right. "Hey, do you want me to play it?"
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, wow. If you're hesitating to do these things, when right around the corner is somebody who can take the words right out of your mouth, right?
Yeah.
It's great.
Well, yes, it's important to be willing to take those risks, and at the same time know that they're not always gonna just be this magical thing of,
It is a risk.
great. Sometimes you're gonna fall flat on your face, and such is life. But as David's sister's book says, you got to be willing to take the the falls and the etc. Got to be willing to fall down.
Well, we're right here for at the end of the hour, Jim. It could
What?
really go on forever. The book's great. I really highly recommend it. It is inspiring, and I do think it has, legs to go far beyond the piano community, which is really wonderful for you. I think people will find it just as an inspiring tale, as I said. So go ahead, guys, and click on the Amazon pre-order link. And and I'll say I thought about this. If you think of it and you send me your pre-order, whatever, there's probably some Amazon code or something. Send me a screenshot and I'll give you a couple months of Piano Tech Radio Hour for just $1 or something, right? And we'll try to support that and make you take the extra step to go ahead and do it, because I highly recommend it, and recommend it to your friends too. I think they'll enjoy it and you won't regret recommending it. Before we go, I mentioned Amazon, and of course it's at Barnes and Nobles, and they can go to your website. They could just Google you and go to your website and find the tuned in link. the tuned in page there. Any place else you want to send people or actions you would like them to take as a result of being here?
I think you've covered the bases. There's directly from Amazon or Barnes and Noble, and there's a landing page that tells you more about the book, jimwilsonmusic.com/tuned in.
Okay, excellent.
Yeah.
Well, it is only an hour-long program. Perhaps we'll have you back. You and I will chat some more. And actually, I'll say before I'll do the sign off and all this stuff, but we'll end the session. So what we're going to do here now is I'll do the outro, and then we're going to play the remaining 10 minutes of this this prologue to your book. If people are interested and they get a taste of it, my humble reading of it. No offense, not offended if
I
you
loved
jump
it.
off.
I loved it.
It'll be me, not you, Jim. But yeah, you can enjoy that and get a little more taste of Paul McCartney's world. And we'll jump off. But if you after the Zoom sessions ends, if you have a minute, I'll text you, jump back on Zoom and we can have a quick chat, or we can do that later at some point. But just to give you a heads up on that. Okay.
Wonderful.
All right. I'll do our outro. So we have reached the end of another musical journey here at Piano Tech Radio Hour. Thanks to Jim Wilson for joining us today. As always, we're brought to you by Piano Technicians Masterclasses, cutting-edge instruction from piano industry masters without leaving your home. If you joined us today for signing up for this session individually, you could make your life easier, more convenient. Subscribe to Piano Tech Radio Hour, $16 a month. If you give your Amazon receipt, it's only $1 for a few months. We'll say 3. Why not? 3 months for just $1. You'll get the recording of today's session in our member area, as well as automatic registration for each week's new session. You can sign up at bit.ly/joinptrh. That's bit.ly/joinptrh. And so we'll see you all again next week. I'll share the remainder of the prologue to the book, and we'll jump right on off at that end. Thank you, guys. Thanks for joining. Thanks, Jim. Appreciate
Thanks for
you
having
all.
me.
Of course. Here we go.
Alone in his studio, I hit pause for a second to take in where I am.